How did you like the speech? What was the atmosphere like for you?
Well, it was a very impressive speech, I think, by all accounts. I think here in the halls, I've been here for coming here for several years. There was a full room. There were 2 additional rooms for overflow. Great expectation about what President Xi would say. Then on the speech itself, I think President Xi has spoken like a global leader. He spoke to global audiences. That was clear, not just to his Chinese constituencies. And I think that was very much appreciated.
Mm-hmm. What was one sentence, if I would ask you for one sentence or one image that stood out from this entire speech, what would it be?
I think he's made, as someone has said, a very robust defense of global systems, not only of economic globalization, but of global systems. We live today in a world that is complex, which has now been hit in a great part by anxiety and uncertainty, mostly brought about by electoral politics in the US and in Europe. But going forward, I think what we heard from President Xi is we have resilient institutions, global institutions, we have a global order that is rules-based, and I think we have the means to peacefully move forward in what he called a shared community of interest.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he has addressed the kind of concerns people came to Davos with, the uncertainty with the future of the world's economy, where the world would be going in terms under the influence of populism and the unbalanced development the world is faced with? Do you think he provides some answers that people were looking for in the Chinese leader?
I think so. I think that there's so much that the president of China can do for a world that is so complex, and particularly at this very moment when we face the uncertainty of, again, how politics will drive policy, particularly coming from Washington and from Europe in the next few years, if not in the next few months. But I think, to your question, President Xi painted a very interesting picture of where we are in the world today. He started by quoting Dickens and quoting from his very famous "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times,"
yes,
which I think is very much how people are feeling about the world today. Great richness, great wealth being created by globalization, what he called economic globalization, but at the same time, very important underlying forces that are disturbing the possibility of everybody benefiting from that globalization. And so I think he was very good at providing some responses as to what really could be an issue that comes out of economic globalization, what are issues that are actually born nationally. So for instance, some of the anxiety here in Europe has to do with immigration, and particularly refugees. And so he was clear in explaining that that's not really something that can be connected to economic globalization. Same with the question of inequalities. So there's so much that the international trade system and the international development system can do for inequality, and there's much more to do, and he was clear on that. But what we're seeing now is particularly a failure of economic policies at the domestic level, distribution policies at the domestic level, if you will.
Yeah, well, he was making that very interesting metaphor, saying you cannot deny, it's a double-edged sword, and you cannot deny something simply because it has some defects. At the same time, also a very interesting metaphor he made about countries are welcome to board China's express train. Let's take a listen to this soundbite from President Xi when he talked about that instead of complaining or being jealous of other countries, what China is sending out as a signal to its international counterparts.
China's development will continue to offer opportunities to business communities in other countries. China will keep its door wide open and not close it. An open door allows both other countries to access the Chinese market and China itself to integrate with the world. And we hope that other countries will also keep their door open to Chinese investors and keep the playing field level for us.
Now, before we started this analysis, we were reviewing some press reports from the West, and some people were saying China is the biggest beggar in Davos. You know, China is closing up its markets, and China is restricting international capital flows and delinking itself from the world. Do you think what President Xi said during his speech rebuked that kind of criticism effectively, or shall we really need to wait and see what China actually does in the future?
Well, I think both, meaning President Xi was very clear about the direction in which he is moving his government through policies that will continue to open up its economy. He has talked about facilitating investment. He's talked about embracing technology, going for a higher road to development by going up value chains, and all this in a very positive way forward. He has also talked about other values and other values of globalization, which is very important. He's reiterated his commitment to the Paris Agreement and climate change. He's reiterated his commitment to action on the environment, and so on. But on the other hand, there is the experience that people have, meaning that they would like to see a China that opens up faster, perhaps. There are issues perhaps related to not perfect aligning between these government policies at the national level and provincial levels. So there are investors and there are companies that have a mixed experience in their participation in the Chinese market. But I think all around, what President Xi is saying is China is here in the global market. It has embraced the global market. It has embraced the liberal order that it inherited since it acceded to the WTO. It's here to play by the rules, and it is expecting that the others do the same. So in that way, he has become perhaps the biggest advocate, and China has become the biggest advocate of globalization and the current model that we have.
Thank you very much, Ricardo, for joining us from Davos. That was Ricardo Melendez-Ortiz, Executive Director of the International Center for Trade and Sustainable Development.